There we go. Okay, so we got a bunch of things to cover this morning. I'm not sure how much of them you've done with other classes. So I'm just going to get into a bunch of everything from the logistics to the what are we doing. This is a course where we're going to learn about HTML and CSS, and we're going to drop the JavaScript part. That's a second course that we do. And I like to kind of prefix this with, why as a designer do you want to get involved with doing web development? And I have some reasons why I think it's really cool and interesting. If you're hearing an echo through there, just mute your mic. What you're getting is my voice coming back through your own mic. Right? So the first thing is you should know that I'm predominantly a game development guy.
Everyone is having some trouble. We're here at the campus and
okay.
You can hear anything or they are speaking and you can hear them. So,
at the campus?
Yes, like no one is getting any response with the audio.
Oh, the campus had a problem with original Discord. It should be working. It's installed on your computer. If not, you can do it through the browser.
Okay.
If you go to the browser and go to Discord, let me get the link for you.
They are all in the same place, so they are gonna do the opposite. Yeah, they're gonna download the app.
Oh, okay. The app probably isn't installed on the school computers.
Yes, no, in the school computer it is not.
Yeah. The school computers have this wonderful, wonderful thing about them. They're very, very high end in terms of their capabilities, or what we would call medium high end. But the IT department has closed off almost everything on them so that you can't modify them very easily. Okay. So when we use some of these applications, the IT department's like, no, can't do that. If you get stuck, I'm going to try and put the link here. You should be able to log into your account at discord.com and go through the web. It's practically the same. I know we have a few more folks at the school then. All right. So, as I was saying, we kind of do the HTML and CSS thing from two perspectives. One is from a design perspective. A lot of agencies these days either mock things up or build things through HTML and CSS. So it really makes sense for us to explore how we can demo and show some of our designs this way. From a game perspective, we hire designers all the time to build the user interfaces for our games. So if that's something that interests you, this is kind of the path to follow to get towards there. Now, the first thing, and before I start flipping slides and stuff, I should get to a little bit of logistics. One, I like to run this through Discord because it's one common place that we can all meet. The chat is helpful, not just for me, but if you need to share stuff with your classmates and you're remote. At Game Design, we've been doing this for a year now. When the pandemic first hit, We flipped over from Friday evening to Monday morning, 2 days later, and put everything online because of our use of Discord and the way we broadcast our material. And part of the way we broadcast our material, in addition to live streaming it, is I'm recording this all, and there'll be a YouTube video later that you'll be able to refer to. Now, it's going to be a really long YouTube video, and there's probably going to be a lot of me talking, which is really dull and boring at times. So I'm not offended if you crank it up to double speed and listen to me like a chipmunk. But it's there for you to go back to, particularly when we do technical things. There are going to be things we're going to do that you're going to look at and you're going to be like, I don't get it. By all means, stop me in the middle of the class. Okay? I'm not offended in any way. If you don't get something, there's probably someone else in the class that doesn't get it either. And when we blast through things at high speed, you're not getting your full money's worth if you don't understand what we're doing. So if there's something that seems really complicated, stop me. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to have to set up some stuff on your machine. There's some things, particularly for those of you at home, that are going to make your life a little bit easier to work on this. And there's some things that you're going to need to do at the school as well. Particularly, what we're going to need is we're going to need to play around with the folders on our computer, and we're going to need to play around with an editor. So we're going to get all of that kind of configured and set up today. Let's get a little started with some of this. First off, I'm Scott, and I've been doing this here at VFS for about 7 years now. Are you guys at the school able to hear us now?
They're working on it.
They're working on it.
A couple of people straggling.
Oh, well, they're straggling. You know, you show up early and you set up early. It's called professionalism.
That's right.
Okay. I've been doing this software development thing for a lot of years. Most recently, prior to VFS, I was a producer in Electronic Arts, where I produced a few small video games. And prior to that, I was a software developer working predominantly in the telecom business, building network switches and telephone gear. So, you know, the whole, when you dial your phone number, do you know how it finds your neighbor? That software is all me. So we have an idea how we build things, and how I got into doing the web stuff was, if we look at a typical game product these days, if we have 100 people working on a game, it's highly likely that upwards of 60 to 70 of them are working on what we call the back end. Now, when we're building games, we have some terminology, so if it sounds weird, stop me, I'll explain them. In game terms, we have a front end and a back end, and in the HTML world, we have a front end and a back end. The front end is the part the user sees. It's the user interface. In your case, it's what runs in the browser. In the game, it's the client or the game you're actually playing. The back end lives somewhere else. And these days, it's typically in the cloud, but it's the place where we're storing data. It's what enables you to go into a game and play that game on 4 different computers, and when you log into your account, you get your same information regardless of which computer you're on. We're pulling that information from somewhere remotely. When we're doing our web development, we're going to do something similar eventually. The HTML, CSS part is what's in your browser. It came from somewhere. And that somewhere it came from is the back end or the web server. We're not going to be building anything to do with web servers in this class. We're just going to build the parts that get pulled into the browser. All right. And we do take a look at a lot of the HTML, CSS stuff, as well as by the end of the course, I may touch on a little bit of the JavaScript stuff. These are all things that get pulled into the browser and they're running in your browser. So the first question we have to kind of like get sorted with is, what are all the technologies and tools that you have? A lot of you are working at home, and you've probably seen some of the messages I put out there. From experience, we like to have people on equipment that can actually do the job. If you're going to take this as a profession, you're probably going to need equipment that is sufficient to work on, because quite likely there's going to be some aspect of every job you get that's going to be work from home. So the nice part about web development stuff is you can actually do this on a Mac, right? Now, the reason Macs get downplayed a lot is they're typically very expensive and they can't handle the graphics of most game capabilities. So they're not used at all in game development. Nobody. Right? They are used in design. They are used in web development quite a lot because they're really nice machines to work on. The other thing you should be aware of is that if you're running over Wi-Fi, you will find that all of these video streams, combined with what we're going to share in the editor, combined with you actually working, you're going to run out of bandwidth. And that means you're going to start to see choppy and degraded video. So I highly recommend that if you're on the Wi-Fi, that you get a $12 wire and you connect the network connection on your computer to the switch directly, even if it's a wire lying on the floor. And if you start setting up a home office, make sure your computer's wired. For most of us, it's anywhere from a 10 to a 1,000 times speed increase. So being on a wired connection is kind of one of the key things we look for. The second thing, and this one is a little bit more challenging, but for web development, screen real estate is everything. We're going to be looking at a lot of different things where you're going to want to see 4 things at once. So the more screen real estate you have, the better. Kind of as a minimum, we look at 2 screens that are running full HD. So that's 2 side-by-sides usually, because you're going to have the Discord, and then you're going to have the browser, and then you're going to have the editor, and then you're going to have a debugger. So you're going to need all 4 of those up simultaneously, and if you're constantly flipping between screens, it's going to slow you down. If you can see all 4 of those at once, great. You can get more work done in less time. Now, I don't know any of you guys all just started this week, and my habit is to give people 1 or 2 assignments in the first week, because one of the other kind of goals of being in a trade school like VFS is to get you guys up to speed, up to industry speed. And that happens by doing lots of work volume-wise. Don't worry, I'm not going to break you right away. I'll wait until about midterm before I give you something hard. But it does mean we're going to have to do a little bit of work, and we're not always going to have time to do that work in class. There's a lot of content to cover, a lot of technical details we have to deal with. So be prepared. That's all I'm saying. And be prepared to do a little digging and a little work on your own. Now, that's a little bit about me and what you can expect here. I wonder if each of you would open your mic one at a time and just give us an intro for you. I'm sure you've done this multiple times this week. But what I want to know is, do you have any experience with any sort of coding whatsoever? And what website would you redesign if you had a choice? All right, so give that a little bit of thought. The last thing I'm going to ask, which is going to seem really weird, but it's an interesting character development thing, and that is, how many towels do you own? And I mean own. Like, if you're living with mom and dad, that's fine. That's totally cool, especially right now. But those are mom and dad's towels, not your towels. Okay? So, I'm just going to start down the list alphabetically here. Maybe Alice can go first.
I basically have zero experience in web development, and I understand just like very little bit about CSS because I use WordPress to make website and they ask me to do the like T/P or something. That's just all I know. And then I own 4 accounts. Yeah.
Nice. Anna?
We are 2 Anna, but I do.
Uh-oh. Anna Sophia.
Okay. Oh.
That's why we use the name thing.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Okay, so it was, how much experience do I have?
Yeah. None.
Like, none?
None is fine, okay? I'm used to none.
I'm so nervous.
Why? You're in your home.
I'm so nervous. What else? How many towels do I own? There's like 5.
That's good. Wait.
And what website would I recreate? I think my portfolio. That would be very nice. Because I'm using like Squarespace that shows how little I know of coding. So
Those instant.
Redesign like my whole portfolio and make it nice and exciting.
Yeah. Those instant website sites for that kind of work is way more efficient than trying to code it yourself. Unless you're trying to get a job doing it.
Yeah.
You know, if you're applying for a job to do an HTML layout kind of person, you probably should do your portfolio in HTML to show you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's it.
All right. Who's Bellsboo? Bellsboo?
Hey, I'm sorry. I tried to change my username, but I forgot my password. Sorry, I missed the intro because my headphones weren't working, so I couldn't hear you. I'm really sorry. I have 0 experience. And what else should I say? I'm sorry.
What website would you redesign, and how many towels do you own?
Towels?
Well, because it seemed kind of random.
What? I'm sorry.
Yeah, you heard me right.
Back in Brazil, I have a lot.
No. Here, Brazil doesn't count.
Okay.
There's billions of people in Brazil. I've been. It's just too many people. No, it doesn't count.
About 2, I guess.
2.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a long winter.
And which website I would use?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm sorry.
You don't know. You need to spend. I'm pretty sure you don't hear this a lot, but you need to spend more time online.
I'm sorry. I was a bit nervous because I thought I was in mid-class because I had technical issues.
Well, you are mid-class. You got it all sorted now?
Yeah.
Clover, where'd you go?
Can you hear me?
Yep, you've done this routine. You thought you got rid of me, but you didn't. Ha ha, joke's on you.
No. But yeah. So do I need to be...
So have you done a lot of web development before? Nope. This is what a Wi-Fi connection feels like. Okay. We're going to keep moving. We'll come back. Kate? Oh, you're still muted. There we go.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Okay, so let me see. I think I have about 7 or 8 calls myself, and I dabbled a little bit in website creation, just like a source page and like some things like that. Nothing like professional by any means.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if I could redesign one website, it would probably be one of them because I think it's very outdated in my opinion, and I've worked a lot on it for the past company, so I don't.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Cool. Devin?
Hello.
Hello.
Experience next to none. I would, even though I have zero experience, I would like to update Facebook. I find that just the interface is random and I can't actually find what I'm looking for. Even in the settings, I don't know where I'm going. And then I own 16 towels.
Wow.
Thank you.
Wow.
I like towels. I use a new one every day.
Totally not like the game design campus. Hung?
Hi.
Hi.
So I like close to zero, and I have like 2 towels, 2, 3. I don't really count it. And for redesigning the website, maybe you guys Moodle.
Yes. Yes. Moodle. Don't get me started. Isabel.
Hi. Towels, I don't have any because I just got here and I'm with my cousin, so I'm theirs. Experience wise, I did some newsletters. When I worked at a design studio, I've done some WordPress websites and also internet websites. I would redesign the Microsoft Exchange email.
Yep.
The one we use on VFS. And that's it.
Cool. Thank you. And what? Are you in there twice, Isabel?
No, there's 2 Isabels.
There's 2 Isabels. What are the odds?
And the other one from Brazil, actually.
Another Brazil. I'm in trouble. Okay. Go ahead. Isabel Sacchetti.
Oh, hey, I'm Belzebub. Just changing my profile.
Okay. Yeah, that's going to be fun. Who's next here? Marion?
Yeah. Okay, so experience. Well, probably back in like 2016 when I had a Tumblr and you had to copy paste the HTML like to change your theme. That's probably the only experience.
Cut, copy, paste is not experience.
So 0 basically, and towels. At the moment, I sadly own 1 towel because I arrived very few days ago and I haven't gone shopping yet, so I plan to change that soon. And I don't know, probably the VNR because lately I've seen a lot of artists like struggle to keep their work safe. Like I've seen some some artists have their things stolen and turned into NFTs. So probably something should change there, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, if you want, we can get into that, but it's a challenging problem because of the way the stuff is delivered. Nicola?
Hi, I'm Nicola. I have zero experience. I'm terrified. I'm relieved to hear that so many other people don't have any. I just moved here as well, so I own 2 towels, unless you count my kids' towels. Because if people can't claim their parents' towels as theirs, then I guess I can claim my kids' towels as mine.
You can claim your kids' towels as yours for sure.
Then I have 6. And I'm just going to take my husband's towels as well, so then I have 8.
Yes.
And I've got 2 hand towels, but I'm planning to change that because having so few towels makes me anxious. And the website I would redesign is Sephora because you don't get Sephora in South Africa, and I was super excited to get here and get all the stuff
that you couldn't.
Sorry, you broke up a little.
That you couldn't get here, or that you couldn't get there.
Yeah, exactly. And it has this really annoying thing when you scroll down a list of products and click on one. It doesn't take you back to where you were in the list. You have to start at the beginning again.
Yep. Okay. We got another Anna here.
Yes, I'm Anna.
Hi, Anna.
I have a little experience with JavaScript and with Python. In Maya, I used to do some scripts.
Nice.
Yes, because, I don't really like it. I have to be honest. I've had a hard time. I don't own any towels either. I'm living at a hotel. I'm hoping to move on Friday tomorrow.
Okay.
So maybe then I'll have some towels. And website I hope to redesign. I'm not sure. I've been using Costco a lot because I have to look for all their furniture. So I really don't like it. It's like really, I don't know. I think it could be better. Like
True. A lot of the e-commerce sites have issues, right? So that's a good place to start. And for those of you just moving here, just, find out who lives in the city and ask them. They will tell you where to go to find things and what to do to get yourself set up, right? Rodrigo?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, experience. I studied digital animation in Mexico.
Okay.
But I was really bad at coding. Really bad. so I could say really amateur experience. I know a little bit of coding in After Effects, but other than that, that's it.
Right.
Towels. I currently have 2 towels. Planning on getting more soon, probably. As soon as possible. And website. Right now, I'm actually trying to look to get a new computer. And I try to get one through a Canadian website called Canada Computers and Electronics.
Yep, and it sucks.
They had a really bad experience.
Yep. It does. I know exactly what you're talking about. How about Emmanuel? Hi.
I have zero experience in coding, and I own 2 towers.
And is there some site that you really, really hate going to that you wish was redesigned?
Any website.
How about Jonathan?
Well, was like 18, I took a HTML and CSS Udemy course, like an online course. HTML was cool, but like just being, I don't know, CSS kind of ripped me apart. But I think I could handle it now more so, like a little more grown. If I could redesign any website, there's this website called Rate Your Music, which I use a lot. And they've had the same design since they started.
Yeah.
2006 or something like that. And it's pretty hard to navigate sometimes, especially because there's subgenres for music and stuff, so it's just kind of confusing.
Yep.
My mom owns all my towels. I have 0 towels, so I'm still drying off from yesterday's shower, actually.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Excellent. Nathan?
Yeah, Nathan. I did like a UX UI boot camp like a year ago. We dabbled in like HTML and CSS and then CodePen and Visual Studio for like 2 weeks. So yeah, pretty amateur in there. Towels. I have 2 good towels and one that's kind of ripped and has like bleach mark on it, so it's not as usable. And then the website I would redesign, probably UPS, because like especially with error prevention, like tracking a package, I get lost and then like I have to like completely like exit out and then try to go through the whole process again. So it's kind of frustrating, but yeah.
Definitely a good choice there. Yeah, the rip towel doesn't count as your towel. That's a dog towel. Timmy?
Hello.
Hi.
It's pretty much full level of my foot because I started foundation and actually I think it's really hard and I think I have 2 towels.
Cool. And a site?
I thought that IRCC really well.
Excellent. Who'd I miss? Did I miss anyone?
Yeah, you missed me.
Sorry, Nicholas. Tell me.
Well, I actually studied HTML like for a semester, but that was long ago, so to be honest, I already forgot almost everything. So I'm back to where I started, and I actually did a little game in C#. It was so hard. I almost blow my brains out while making it. And I own the towels, but that's because I just got here. I fully expect to buy some when I'm like in a new place or something.
Cool. You know, one of the things I can share with you is that of the 30 students that started in game design, the average number of towels they have is 1. So don't feel bad. It's good to hear where you guys are all at. I think the number one misconception with any sort of programming tasks is you have to be smart to do this. And that's so much BS, I can't even begin to describe it. It's what you study, okay? It will take work. If you've never done any of this before, try not to psych yourselves out about it. If you think it's really, really hard, I'm going to try and make it less hard, okay? This whole method of building websites and software, we're going to get into, and if I can keep going at a reasonable pace, we might even build a whole site today. It's that straightforward. Okay? It's not going to be fancy or sophisticated. Give me a break. Like, it's going to be simple. But there's a few things we're going to need before we dive in too hard. And so if I can flip back to here, before we dive in, there's a few things you need to be aware of right up front. First of all, ask for help. And this is the biggest thing that we don't get as instructors, is people wait too late and then send me a message just before some assignments due going, hey, I didn't understand this, and so I didn't do it. Blah, 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 excuse. The Vancouver Film School is all about preparing you for working. And in that vein, people in the working world are not ready to listen to excuses all the time. So if you're struggling with something, ask and ask early. Now you can ask for your classmates to help you. You can ask for me. I have a TA and we can get him into our Discord server. You can ask them. There's lots of resources for them, and I will give you a bunch of online resources. The one caveat I will tell you, the one exception I will tell you, when it comes to web development, HTML, CSS, and specifically JavaScript, and anyone who's done any JavaScript is going to be the most dangerous person here. Most of the world looks at websites all the time, which means there's more people building websites and working with HTML and CSS and JavaScript than any other programming medium. Which also means there's more people with more opinions out there than any other venue. So when you need help and you go search the internet for help, 9 times out of 10, the help you're looking at that you think is great is a 13-year-old that once saw a friend do it and cut and paste it somewhere. They have no idea what's good or what's bad. Okay. I have 30 years of software development experience. There's a lot of things we do a very specific way because it makes things easier to maintain, because it makes it easier to understand. Because when you look at what you do in the next 8 weeks and you look at it 3 years from now, are you going to understand what you did? And I'm going to show you ways to do things so that you'll be able to look back at what we do now and go, oh yeah, that makes sense. That's why I did it that way. When you look through Moodle, and I'm going to open it up in a sec, focus on what gets you the marks. In my classes, the prettiest design gets you 0 marks. Let me say that again. The prettiest, the best looking design gets you 0 marks. Okay. Working is typically only worth about 5 or 10 marks. Surprised? Okay. Late will only cost you 5 or 10 marks. So as much as the school likes you to be everything's on time or you get a 0, that's not true. Okay, I'd rather you do the work and learn how to do the things, or hand me what's in progress with a note saying, hey, I got this, this, and this working, but I couldn't figure out how to make that work. Okay. I'm going to be able to grade that. What happens is people get partway through doing something, figure it's not working, and so they don't submit anything. And from the instructor's perspective, if you don't submit anything, I can't actually mark it. I can't give you partial marks. All I can do is put a 0 in that column. And I don't want to put zeros in. It's fast, but it's boring. I want to see some stuff. So focus on what gets you marks. Don't be afraid to put something in that's incomplete, broken, or not working. I've got news for you. I've seen broken before. Right? I know what that looks like. And oftentimes, if you submit something that's broken and it's like a 1-line fix or a 2-line fix, I'll just fix it. Okay. Submit your own work. And this is a challenging one when we're doing any kind of software work. You're going to see examples online all over the place. You're going to get examples from various different sources. You're here to learn how to do it. So copying somebody else isn't going to help you a lot. It's going to get you that extra 5 marks for working, and it's going to lose you all the marks on do you know how to do it. In addition to that, I'm going to show you some ways to do things that are a little bit more software development centric and a little bit less hack it together and make it work. So I can look at something and I'll be able to tell pretty quickly whether or not it's your work or not. The surprising thing you get from an instructor's side is that given this many people in the class, the odds of two people's work being the same looking, even though the result on the screen might be identical, is about 0. Okay. So if 2 assignments come into me and they both look like, the name's changed, but they're kind of looking the same, they probably are the same assignment. And I will even show you the tools I use to figure that out. I have software tools that let me compare any file with any other file and check those files on the internet to see if there's anything similar. So we do that. But again, you're here to learn how to do it. So give it a try. Learn how to do it. The other part is, it's really easy to not show up when things get hard. Please, 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 please. I think this is one of those skills that will serve you well, not just through your design career, but through an entire lifetime. There are some concepts and ways of thinking that will definitely help you puzzle out when things don't work. When you go to the UPS site and you get halfway through it and it doesn't give you the information you want, and you realize that you got to go back a screen and you hit the wrong button to go back a screen and you got to start all over again. And that's partially because of bad design of their site, but it's partially understanding how their site works and what they're collecting and where. Okay. Now, possibly one of you had some of these thoughts before you got into this class, and I know everyone gets asked to take this class. A lot of the jobs these days are remote, and so some of the skills we're going to do remotely are going to help us. A lot of the jobs we do these days have a lot of crossover between different disciplines. If I am looking for someone to help me design the promotional site for my next game, I have a choice between someone who's a designer who does beautiful layouts and even some nice art, or I have a choice between another candidate that does some maybe not as nice design layouts, maybe some better art, but they can also code that site. Which one do you think I hire? Right? I hire the one with more skills. They can learn through experience to get better at what they do. But it's highly unlikely that I have the budget to have a very dedicated specialist for each specific task. So the more skills you can put in your toolbox or in your repertoire, I think the better off you are in a work environment. And a lot of agencies and film and game products these days have web components, whether it's the UI side or whether it's the background, the back end part. Now, no one's going to expect you to do any of the back end programming. All right? Not going to happen in digital design. We have programmers to do that. But I will teach you how to get to the point where you can say, hey, programmer, I need something that does X. Okay. And in a working environment, that's exactly where you would go. And having an understanding of what they need and how they receive that information is helpful. And the core principle here is that in order to design for the web, you kind of need to understand how it works. Okay. It lets you have some common terminology with any back-end programmer you work with. And if you can design and implement stuff, even if it's just thrown together, you can also demo it for clients, customers. I have a couple friends that do this all the time. They do all their mock-ups in the web, HTML and CSS. And that way, when they want to take their laptop to somebody and demo it, they're able to show them what their application might look like, and they can change it right there on the spot. Okay. So our goals really are to understand basic HTML and CSS and to be able to explain what makes up a website versus a web page versus an app. Is there anybody who has an idea of what's the difference between a website and a web page and a web application?
website is only one page of the site, but the website is like the whole website that uses the same domain, I guess. And web page is what you see on your website.
It was a nice try. So a web page gets loaded in your browser. A website is a collection of pages. A web application is a web page that requires no buttons, no scrolling. It's a single page application. Discord in the web is a web application. Discord on your desktop is also a web application. It's actually running in a browser. And which browser would be the most common to run in? Which browsers do you guys use? Mozilla. Hang on. Let's go find out. So if I go up, look up browser statistics, if I'm thinking professionally here, I'm going to want to build my stuff to work with where most people use my stuff. Make sense? Right? Where do most people consume their web content? In 2021, 81% of the world use Chrome. It seems to me that if I'm going to develop for the web, I probably should make it look good on Chrome first, right? Not because Chrome is better or faster, not because it has any superior anything to it, just because 81% of the world is already there. So if I make it work on Firefox first, great, I've covered 5% of the target audience. 5 whole percent. Right? How about you folks on the Mac? Feeling alone? Anyone working on a Mac today? Okay. Everything we're going to do can be done on the Mac. Every program we're going to use, every application, including Chrome. I recommend that you install Chrome and use it for the development work. That way you'll be able to see the tools. The tools look the same way as everyone else. It'll be a little bit easier. And from a learning perspective, we're only going to use the one browser. Okay? If you're doing this commercially, you probably have, like I have on my machine, Chrome, Edge, Firefox, Safari all installed. I don't use them very much, but when I'm building something, I'll make it work in Chrome, and once it looks just great in Chrome, I'll fire it up in Edge, Firefox, and Safari to see if there's anything I need to tweak or change for those browsers. So, what makes up a web page versus an application? Well, the primary difference is in the way it gets used. Web applications, like Discord, don't require you to scroll around all over the place. Everything's on one page. And they provide buttons for everything. They don't assume you have a back button. Right? They don't take advantage of hovers. And it works and looks the same or relatively close on the mobile device as it does on the desktop. Web pages, on the other hand, typically have a layout, and that layout mirrors a document. And those documents quite often have some common components to them. And that's not surprising because the whole web thing was invented by a guy named Tim Berners-Lee. Now, Tim was a researcher at CERN in Switzerland, which is a university. And when he first popped out the first HTML pages, It was really to solve a problem. And the problem he was solving was he was doing academic papers. And when you do an academic paper, you format it nicely and you then get it off to the printer, and the printer prints off 1,000 copies, and you stuff manila envelopes and you send those 1,000 copies off to all the local university libraries. So he was running into this problem where he would do a research paper, format it, get it printed, mail it out to the libraries, and find out the next day that there were typos in his document. So he'd fix the typos and format it and print it and mail it again. And 2 days later, he'd find out that there were more typos that he didn't catch the first time. So he did it a few times and decided, there's a better way. So he sat down with some of his master's and PhD students and said, we got to come up with a better way. And what they came up with was, hey, let's create something that we can let live on a computer on our campus. And that document that lives on that computer, we can't really transmit, what it looks like through the internet, but maybe we can just transmit some text. The layout or the markup language. So they defined a markup language that would give them the formatting they want, and then they built a piece of software. And that software was a browser. That browser was called Mosaic. And they distributed it for free to all the universities. Now, I was working in a company that was tied to the university when this Mosaic browser first popped out, and we all kind of shared it around because we figured out instantly that the ability to write a document, put it in one place, and whenever there was a mistake with it, all I had to do was fix the one file on the server in one place, and every browser could access it again. What the browser does is it grabs that file off the server, that markup document, and it does all the formatting and drawing on the screen. So it didn't matter whether you were on a Unix machine or a Windows machine or a Mac, the browser on those machines handles drawing everything for that machine. So in this class, what we're going to do is we're going to start learning the markup language that they used. Now, when we talk about web pages versus apps, pages by convention typically have two main areas. There's an area of what we call above the fold, and there's an area below the fold. Now, there's nothing in the markup that identifies these, but the fold is where your browser stops. And it's an analogy to a newspaper, right? If you have a newspaper, how many remember newspapers? You remember that old ancient technology called a newspaper, right? You open up the newspaper, it's got a fold in the middle. Everything above the fold is the most important stuff you see at a glance, the headlines. Everything below the fold you have to scroll to get to. Okay. The other important distinction is between a website and an app is that technologically, HTML, CSS, JavaScript-wise, they are identical. There is nothing in the way you create them that's different. It's 100% in the design. Okay, so the way we make them is the same, whether it's an app or a web page. A site is just a fancy way of saying we're going to have a whole collection of pages all at once that are linked together. Modern HTML takes it a step further. Tim Berners-Lee first version of HTML was a single markup document. And so they mixed up and put together all the formatting things like I want this in bold, or I want a header, or I want paragraphs here, with the way it looked. And we're all kind of meshed together. In a modern sense, we separate those two things out. So we want the structure in one location or one style, one document. And we want the look and feel in another. And we want to separate out the structure from the look and feel because there are lots of times when we want to change the look and feel, but the content and the structure is fine. So by separating them into separate components, we can modify one or the other without impacting the opposite one. And what do they stand for? Well, Tim's first language was called the hypertext markup language. And it's a derivative of a markup language called XML. CSS is a cascading style sheet. And the idea here is that with the HTML document, we're going to build up the structure, a lot like the framing of a house. And with the CSS, we're going to hang some styles on that frame. We're going to tell you what color the walls are, what kind of molding goes around the windows, what kind of lighting is going to be in place. And we're going to separate those two things apart so that we can modify them independently. Okay. As an example, the structure tells us which parts are text, which part's a title, which part is a box full of other components, which things are pictures, which things are buttons. The style part tells us about the colors and the look and whether or not things should be justified a certain way or whether corners should be rounded. All of this gets put together in the style sheets. Right. Now, it's probably a good time for us to take a short break, freshen your coffee. I'm going to take 5 minutes, okay? Get up, stretch, get out of your chair for a minute. And just take a relaxing moment. Fill your coffee back up. We'll sit back down at, let's say, 10 after. Okay? And when we sit down, we're going to start diving into, okay, what does HTML really look like in terms of what do we have to develop? All right? We're going to look at what about programming. So we'll come back at 10 after, okay? All right, welcome back. So before we get into it a little too deep, we're going to need to kind of do a little work to help our environment out. So for those of you on the Windows environment, I'm going to try and illustrate some of the things you probably want to set up to help you. If you're on a Mac, the stuff I'm going to show you, I'll try and talk through what you do. I don't have the ability to share my Mac with people, but you'll get the idea because you're used to it, I hope. So first thing, we're going to do a few nice things to help us out. The first thing I'm going to dive into, look at my fancy desktop here. And in my fancy desktop, I'm going to bring up this File Explorer. So whenever people are talking about the Explorer, they're not talking about Internet Explorer. They're talking about the File Explorer. And it's really, really small when you look at it on my screen, and it doesn't really matter what the text says on there. What does matter is you see these little checkboxes that come by default in Windows, right? These are the rookie checkboxes that say I'm not quite sure what I'm doing yet. So we're going to set up your view to make it easier for you. The first thing you want to do is switch to the View menu. I'm going to see if I can use my fancy tools today. The View menu up at the top here. And from that View menu, we want to change Item checkboxes. And we want to turn them off. Now, I typically like the Tile view or the Details view. With the Details view, and you can see this in the Finder as well, it tells you the data file's modified. And it tells you the full path to where that file is on your local hard drive. It'll tell you here in the address bar. So when we look at files and folders, you should know where you are on your local hard drive. On Windows machines, including the ones at VFS, there is a drive that your local material is on. That is the drive you should work on. Okay. Now the IT guys might have told you to work on the H drive. I would say don't do that. It's too slow. Right. The local drive is that C drive. And if you click on the address bar, it'll show you the full path to it there. So the address bar is this guy right here. So I'm turning the checkboxes off.
On my screen, the resolution is dropped. So good.
Right. So one of the things you can do if the resolution starts to drop in Discord is we can start to turn off your local cameras. And then all the bandwidth goes to mine.
It's not even on. Oh.
So setting up your File Explorer to make it a little bit easier for you. The other thing you want to notice, and I have it circled here as well, is file name extensions on, not hidden items. So file name extensions we want on. Now, the reason we want those file extensions on is because when we look at files in our work, the type of file it is dictated by the extension. In other words, what Windows does is it looks at that extension, that .html, and decides which program should open that. So when we start creating stuff, we want to make it with the right extensions so that the right programs open up at the right time. You want to be able to find your work too. Now, what I recommend for you guys, underneath your C drive, you will find a users folder. And there's a home folder on the Macs as well. This is your home location. This is your files. Now, the H drive at school is a network drive that's been attached to the drive letter H. It's great for backups. Make copies up there of anything you don't want to lose. But for working, it's a little too slow because it waits for the network for everything. What I tend to do is put all my stuff in a VFS folder in my home folder. And underneath there, I create what we call a repos folder. Now, we're not going to use it this term, but when we're building anything, we can use tools to help us manage all the different versions we're going to make. And those tools are called source control tools. And they have source repositories that they use. For our purposes, we just want kind of a folder structure that's similar. So we could make that repos folder. And inside there, we're going to create a folder for everything we're going to do.
Sorry, do you mind going back just 2 steps?
No problem. So, on your C drive, under this PC, you'll see your 2 device drives, or 1. You guys should see an H drive at school, at least a C drive. Damn, mine's getting full. And on that C drive, you'll find a users folder. And in that users folder, you'll find your username. That's where your stuff goes. Now, there's 2 places to not put folders or files when you're working on development work. One of them is the documents folder. Don't use the documents folder. Okay. And the reason we don't use the documents folder is that most Windows computers are running Microsoft's OneDrive. OneDrive tries to mirror the documents folder to Microsoft servers for backup purposes. Which means when we're building stuff, we're going to be editing files constantly. And every time you edit it, OneDrive will try and save it to that backup server. That'll slow you down tremendously. So we don't put any of our work in the documents folder. It's even worse if you're physically at the school. When you work in the documents folder at school, the school has blocked access to OneDrive. So now it's going to try and write to OneDrive, and then it's going to have to wait for it to time out and fail. So you're going to wait every time you edit something. So don't put anything in the documents folder. For the same reason, don't put anything on your desktop. The desktop is a folder, and that desktop folder is similarly trying to mirror it to Microsoft's backup servers. Now, these are all nice services for everyday use, but for software development work, for web development work, they slow us down tremendously. So we want to stay away from them. So inside your home folder, create a new folder called VFS. In the Windows File Explorer, you can just create a new folder. And it makes sense to put all your VFS work there. Inside my VFS folder, I have a folder, again, new folder, called repos for all my repositories. And that's for all the software we write. Not the documents, just the software. And inside there, we're going to create a folder. I'm going to keep one folder down, but we're going to create a folder for everything we build. So today, we're going to build a new HTML page. So let's create a new folder called Hello.
Inside the software folder?
Yep. Okay. Now, one of the exercises I'll have you do is do this multiple times. Every new website or page we build gets its own folder. So you don't just keep editing the same one over and over again. You create a new folder for everything we build.
So we have to do it on this PC to...
Yep.
New folders? Okay.
Yep. Okay. And as we start to... Go ahead.
On a Mac is what I have to do, put it in the hard drive folder.
Yeah, so you go into the Finder and you go to your home folder.
Yeah.
And create a folder under there called VFS. And a folder under there called Repos.
Yeah.
And a folder under there called Hello.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay? So the Finder and the File Explorer, pretty much the same thing. The views are a little different. Now, before we start building stuff for the web, I kind of got to show you how the web works, sort of. So we're going to dive into that for a couple minutes, and then we're going to add a tool. And that tool is going to involve you having to install something. Now, this is one of those things where the IT folks, if you're one of the people at the school physically, tells you, oh no, you can't install anything, and they lied. You can. And we'll show you how to do that. Okay. So, now that you have a folder, that's where we're going to work on that first thing we build. We can go back to how does HTML actually work? Okay. The picture you have to have in your brain is that there are two computers involved. And those two computers are going to talk to each other. So when you go into your browser, that's the local computer. That's your workstation. And that browser is a program like any other program that's running on your computer. That browser has some capabilities. It has an address bar at the top. That address bar lets you identify which server you want to load a page from. And that address bar, by default, doesn't force you to tell it which exact page to add, but it does expect a certain page. If you don't provide the name of the page, it assumes that page is a page called index.html. So the other golden rule is the first place, the first file that we create in every site, every app, every page we build is always called index.html. That is the name of the file. There is no other. Always index.html, which is why we use folders, because we use the folder to name the application. It's not hello index.html. It's not hello.html. It's index.html. Now, when your browser tries to go to a website, it punches in the address of that website, and you're communicating to the remote website and asking that site for a document. Quite literally, you are saying, go get me this index.html file. And the web server goes and finds that index.html file and sends it to your browser. And your browser takes a look through that index.html file, and it walks through it one line at a time and draws it on the screen. Okay? So, we're going to need a little bit of a tool to help build it. Okay? And that tool is going to be an editor we can work in. Now, when you're working with files and documents on the computer, you should recognize both Macs and PCs try to emulate some really old school ideas. The old ideas on your PC, the C drive, is supposed to be the equivalent of a file folder, a file cabinet. and that every folder is going to contain a bunch of files, and every file has a certain type to it. The kinds of files we're making, the HTML files, are what we call text files. So we need a text editor to edit them. Now there's a couple text editors already on your computer. Notepad is one of them. Microsoft Word is not a text editor. Google Docs is not a text editor. TextEdit on the Mac is a text editor. But these are not programming editors. They don't have tools to help you write software. There are sites that you can use. Some of you used CodePen before. That can help you learn to write software without having to have some of these tools installed. But I think it's easier to just get used to using the tools right away. Now these tools have a name. There's a class of tools. They're called Integrated Development Environments, or IDEs. And these IDEs are integrated into your computer in a way that lets you open up the editor and have a file manager in it, and have a terminal in it, and have a debugger in it, and have all of the things you need. So the editor that is pretty much the most popular one right now is called Visual Studio Code, VS Code. And we're going to go install VS Code for all of you. So in your browser, we're going to tell it, go search for VS Code. And you'll know you get there when it says Visual Studio Code by Microsoft. And we're going to go to the download page. Now, which one you download depends on where you're working.
Sorry. It's kind of glitchy, kind of the resolution. What do you need to search?
VS Code, or Visual Studio Code.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I also got this problem with the keyboard. It's kind of dark.
Yeah, Visual Studio Code. I'll put the link in the text chat.
No, I'm saying that keyboard screen is kind of blurry.
Yes. But you can open up a browser and go to the link that's in the text channel. Now, when you get to the Visual Studio Code page, yeah.
No, sorry, it's just that for Mac, I already downloaded the Studio Visual Code, but I don't know how to, like, where to open up in Finder, like, create the file that you told us about.
Right.
I tried in the iCloud drive. Is that where I put it?
Nope. No, the iCloud drive, again, like Microsoft's OneDrive, is going to try and copy things to the cloud every time you change them, which is going to be really slow. So in the Finder, go to your home folder in the Finder. And in your home folder, create a new folder called VFS.
Okay.
And inside the VFS folder, create a repos folder. And inside there, create a hello folder.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll put it here. There we go. Now, obviously, if you're on a Mac, you want to install the Mac version. If you're on a Windows PC, you want the 64-bit user installer. And you just click on that button right there, 64-bit underneath the Windows, and that will install the local version, the one that does not need administrator to install. You can install this at VFS. You can install this while you're on the campus as well. All right. You'll drop it into your downloads folder. You'll save it. And you'll open it when it's done. Now, I already have it installed. One of the things that's nice about VS Code, and the reason I like to use VS Code, is it's very geared towards web development. There are some nice built-in tools to help us. Another thing I like about VS Code that will help you guys is it has a tool in it called Live Share. And what Live Share is, it lets me share my Visual Studio Code outside of Discord. And you can watch my screen live once you have it running, once you have Visual Studio Code running. I will send an invite in Discord to my Visual Studio Live Share. And when you get that invite, all you have to do is click on it and your Visual Studio Code will pop up and you will be able to see my code. And it won't be in the blurry Discord screen or Zoom screen or anything else. You won't have to squint to see it. You won't have to go check the video later. You'll be able to see what I'm doing live as we do it. And from time to time, I may even give you control over my editor so that you can edit things. And what does Visual Studio Code look like when you get it up and running? Well, it looks like this. So I'll give you a minute to download and install that. The Mac installation process is a little bit more convoluted. You'll have to download it, and then you'll extract the installer and then drag the installer into the applications folder.
It actually wasn't an installer.
It was just the app?
Yeah, and then it was the app, yeah.
Did it work?
Yeah, I have it already open.
Right. So if you have a screen that looks something like this, this is your Visual Studio Code. And I'm going to open up. Well, I'll do it in a second. I'm going to give everyone a chance to try and get this working.
Do we create a new file or?
Not yet.
Yeah.
Not yet. So if we've got this installed, and if you're watching it install in the background, you can take a quick look at this. I'm going to give you an idea of what the user interface looks like and what you can do. This part here is where we edit files. That's the text editor part. Over here, this toolbar is the place where we can get to our different integrated tools. The first tool at the top here, the default one, is the File Explorer. And it's exactly the same as looking at the Finder or the Windows Explorer on your computer. And it shows the current folder you're in and all the files and folders inside it. So there's my repos demo folder there. The second one down, we're not going to use this term. That's the compile, edit, debug. And if you're doing JavaScript work, that's the tool we would have to set up and configure to be able to run JavaScript apps. The next one down here is the source control tool. And we're not hooking up the source control in this project, so I'm not going to get you to worry about it. If you've ever heard of a thing called GitHub or Git, that's where it gets integrated. The next one down here is extensions. And the extensions for Visual Studio Code is supported by a really large community. And if I open up the extensions, you can see I have a whole bunch of extensions installed here. You don't need all of these. These are ones that I use. There's an entire library. You can search for extensions. So if you want something that does like cool icons, you can just search for icons. And look at that. It'll go look for them. So there's an entire marketplace you can search for extensions there. The little spyglass is a search tool. And it's a very powerful search tool. You notice I have my demo folder open and all of the folders beneath it. Remember my file explorer over here? I created that hello folder. You'll also notice that the folder contents in Visual Studio Code match the folder contents here. Those are two different windows into the exact same folder on my hard drive. Now that search function is really powerful. It lets you search through every file and every folder underneath the currently open folder. The next couple buttons are particular to me. These are based on plugins I have. And those are all tools that the plugins have added. So I have a project manager, and I have a workspace manager, which we're not going to get into. And I have a remote connection tool for remote server debugging and a place for taking notes. Down here is the live share tool. And if you click on it, you can either connect to a live share if you know the ID, or you can share your screen. And when I give you the link in Discord, you'll be able to just click on the link and it'll open Visual Studio Code with the right live share. I have a couple more tools in here. I have a to-do list tool. Get my little drawing here. I have a to-do list tool and some Python tools here. If you're looking to configure it, settings is down at the bottom corner. Now the other areas of the screen, so that controls this whole sidebar here. And there are some other tabs and panels I'll explain when we need them that go into this sidebar. The main menu bar is right at the top here. And then there's a terminal attached. And for the work we're going to do here, we don't need this terminal. We don't need this command prompt. So we're going to turn it off. And we're going to turn it off by just hitting the X and closing it. So this editor is going to give us everything we need to build our pages and our sites. Now, I'm going to try the live share thing. So I'm going to go start a live share session, and I'm going to post the link in the DD53 text channel. And if you've got Visual Studio Code installed, you can try clicking the link and see if you can share with me. So I'm going to share my session. I'm going to make it read only, but I'm going to leave this up so you can see what happens. So if anyone wants to try that out, you can go to the text channel and just click the link.
I can't see the link.
It's in the DD53 text channel.
One quick question. What would you recommend? Would you recommend opening it on a new browser or on the Visual Studio program?
In the Visual Studio program. So you can see people joining. You can click on the link to go. Now I'm going to go to our hello folder. And I'm going to create a new file. And that file's always what? Index.html. So for those of you who are attached to the live share, you should be able to see what's in my screen.
Do I need to have a GitHub account?
Nope.
Seems like
Nope.
okay.
No. I mean, you can, and we can talk offline about how useful it is, but and the reason I like to get this set up is, as you've noticed with Discord, that the quality fluctuates depending on how many people are sharing video and how complex the images I'm broadcasting are. But when we're looking at code, sometimes it's hard to see what's going on. It's a lot easier if you can look at the live share. The other trick I'll give you is, while I'm setting up this live share to be read-only, so you can't edit it, I can change that more. You can copy and paste it. So if you have 2 copies of Visual Studio Code running, you can close the sidebar up and you can copy from one and paste in the other.
Sorry, do you mind doing that one more time?
Sure. So I highlighted something. Copy. Control C. Or Mac function key C.
No, sorry. Opening like a tab to see both windows.
Oh, it's not in a tab. In Windows, it has this cool little thing. If you take an application and you drag it to the side of your screen, it'll automatically snap to half the screen. So I just fired up Visual Studio Code twice. Just double click the icon again, you'll get another copy. You can also create a new window from the file menu.
That's just a Windows thing. I assume Mac doesn't do that.
You can do it in Mac too. One of the other reasons we like Visual Studio Code, and in general the world kind of likes Visual Studio Code for web development, is Visual Studio Code is the same on the Mac, on a Linux machine, and on the PC. The interface that you see here is identical on all 3. So it doesn't matter what you're working on. If you want to work on your Mac, work on your Mac. There's nothing negative to working on a Mac for web development. You use the same tools, the same techniques, it just works the same. And if you had to go work on a PC and you're used to using Visual Studio Code, you just put Visual Studio Code on the PC, and you're right back into a very comfortable, familiar environment. All right. Most people kind of have this running. Let's go see. We got lots of folks in here.
I'm so lost. I think I'm just.
So where are you at? Where are you at?
I'm trying to join the live share, and it's asking me to sign into Microsoft Windows. So I'm trying to sign into my.
You're on your local machine? You're at home?
Yes.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to sign into Microsoft to do it. If you go to the DD53 channel and you just click on the link, should take you right there.
I think it's maybe it's not recognizing the DD3 software because I already have Microsoft software installed on this machine.
You want to share it?
What, my screen?
Yeah.
Don't laugh.
Why? Are there puppy pictures? Puppies aren't bad.
Just because you'll see how lost I am.
Yeah, but you're just going to get more lost if you don't. Nicholas, I gave you read-write control. If you want to start typing there, you're welcome to.
Sure, just let me try.
Gosh, I'm trying to. Oh, there we go. Yeah, I just have to give. Okay, Discord wants me to reopen before I can share my screen.
Okay.
I think I'm having trouble joining the thing as well.
The live share?
Yeah, because it just opens the Visual Studio, but nothing else. Like, I'm just, like, in the, it says, like, get started, and I don't know if that's what I should be looking at.
Oh, look at that. The HTML editor got carried away there. All right, multiple people can share their screens. If you're running into problems, that's fine. Go into Discord, push the little share your screen button, and then share the either the whole screen or the application. Okay, Nicholas, you're getting a little carried away.
So is it no problem if we don't join the live directly?
No, it's not going to hurt. It's just easier to watch what's going on.
Okay.
Right.
It's to get rid of the blurry screen.
Yeah. It's easier to read the text of what we're typing and keep up with what we're doing as we do it. Okay. So here, okay, so what this is doing is you're starting a collaboration session. You just want to join it. Okay. So if you click the live share button, the one on the left-hand side there, it's the very bottom of the toolbar. This button.
Am I sharing my screen?
Yep.
Me.
I got Nicholas' screen.
Nicola.
Who else do I got?
Actually, I've never been more lost.
Oh, no. So, go back to your Discord. Yeah, where you're at is you're about to share your screen. You're about to host.
am I supposed to do?
All right.
I've never used this
Yeah.
before.
So go to Discord.
Okay.
And in Discord, let's see if I can. You go to the DD53 channel, the text channel. At the risk of things going crazy, DD53 channel, and you click on the link.
Okay.
There you go. Continue as anonymous.
Okay.
Put your name in there so we know who you are, and then when I click the accept button, right, enter your name, press enter.
I did. Okay.
Press enter. Close the welcome page. There you are. Right?
Thank you.
Cool. How high tech is that?
I'm basically a hacker now.
Yeah, pretty much. Okay, so that terminal at the bottom that you have there, the bottom tab, down at the bottom here, you just hit the X on the right-hand side and close it. You don't need it. This X right here. Yep. There you go. So, this is what I mean by screen real estate. You watch in Discord, you can take your Visual Studio Code and drag it off to another screen, and even when I type stuff, you'll see what happens, even though I've got something else running in Discord. So now you can go back to watching your regular broadcast.
I see you have trouble to join. Can you share my screen?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So I click on DD53 and I try to click the link. It sends me to the browser.
Show me where it's going. Oh, I'm still watching Nicholas' screen. There we go. So when you click on the link, where does it take you?
To the browser.
So show me in Chrome. When you click on it, it probably goes to the browser directly. Do you have Visual Studio running?
Yeah, I do. That's here. I'm also sure if you can see it.
Nope, we just get the one app. I'm just seeing your Discord.
How can I change?
You can share your whole screen if you want.
Okay, I see it.
So click on screens at the top there.
Okay.
Okay? Try it. There we go. So here's the challenge, and here's the challenge you're going to run into. Because you've got one screen and you've just maximized everything to the whole screen, you basically only get one application you can see at a time. So this is fine. It'll work here just as well. It could be that this is Visual Studio Code running in the web. So the live share session, I just need to accept it.
Okay. And how can I accept that?
Well, you don't have to do anything at this point. Although you've got a few of them running. There you go. Continue as anonymous.
If I open this as a browser instead of inside the app.
Either one.
Okay.
Right. I'll share a dirty little secret with you.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you look on Discord here. Here's the developer tools looking at Visual Studio Code, and this is the web debugger. This, remember I showed you the two side by side?
Screen is so blurry.
Yeah, you don't need to see the blurry, you just need to see the big blue blocks. See the big blue block?
Yeah.
So what am I looking at on the right? What does it kind of look like? Kind of looks like HTML on the right.
Like a bunch of code.
Yeah. And that HTML code means that Visual Studio Code is a web application. It's built using HTML and CSS.
So we could use like what's it called, Visual Studio Code in like as a web browser.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
It's kind of the other way around though. It's running inside a web browser. You just don't see the outer borders and stuff. Fancy, right?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. I'm using a web app to create web apps.
Yeah.
But wait, how? Yeah. So cool, powerful stuff, right? So some of the things we need. Now, I'm going to flip back to a couple slides here because now that we've got an editor, okay, that's great. We have the tools. The next thing is, well, what the hell do we build? And that's where most of the software development side resides. You know, before we get too far as programming stuff goes, once you wrap your head around the idea of doing some sort of programming, then easily the biggest skill that you can learn is how to solve problems. And most of programming is just solving problems using tools like software languages, programming tools, compilers, web development. So the problem solving part is the hard part to do. And the learning a new language, whether it's HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Python, C#, C++, Fortran, Pascal, whatever, for most programmers, once they know how to program, is like a 2-week exercise of learning where the right semicolons and curly brackets and stuff go. So what we're going to focus on is using HTML to kind of solve some problems. And the basic premise is we're going to follow this kind of recipe for doing it. We're going to identify the problem. We're going to turn around and we're going to figure out what is the thing we're trying to do in our application or our page. And then we're going to create a user interface. And quite frankly, I usually create these on paper. We'll sketch them out as a bunch of boxes. And then we'll go and start implementing that bunch of boxes with HTML. We'll decide how they look by using some styles. And once we put those things together, we can start to test it and maybe make some things interactive, eventually coming up with application components, things like forms and errors, dialog boxes, and things like that. So first off, the first problem I'm going to get you to solve is let's build our first little page. And our first little page is going to involve using a little bit of HTML. Now, before I get into the details and the semantics, two things I'll share with you. One, in Moodle, when the class is done today, sometime by the end of the day, I will upload a link to the entire video of today's session. The other thing I will upload is that every time I show you a slide deck, I will upload PDFs of the slide deck. They're welcome to browse through them and look through them and use them as a reference guide. So you don't have to make notes on those things. Now, how the web actually works, how your browser works, is kind of in this picture here. And if I slide myself out of the way, we can kind of see that black diagram. Now, every time you type in an address in your browser, it reaches out to a server, and from that server, it asks for index.html. That comes into the networking piece, where it handles all of the text it got, and it splits it up. And it sends the HTML and the CSS to what we call the parser. And it sends the JavaScript to the JavaScript interpreter. And the parser takes apart the text, and what parsing does is it takes the text and it turns it into something useful. And particularly, what the text gets turned into is what we call a data structure, or the document object model, or just the document for short. And that's the browser's interpretation of that web page. Now that document then goes through a layout tool and a rendering tool to figure out how to draw it on the screen. So all we need to know is, how do we write HTML so that this parser can figure out how to do all these other bits? Now, all of this stuff in this box happens inside your browser. There's nothing you have to do. This is just taking the wraps off that black box. So we're going to go into the editor. I've already got an index.html file there. We're going to go build that first web page. So we're going to start, if you look in the live share, we're going to start, I'm going to get rid of all this junk. Never be afraid to delete things in your editor. And I'm going to start with telling the browser what kind of file this is. And I'm going to do that by creating this doctype HTML tag. Now, next time we're going to get into the gory details behind tags and what they are. But this tells the browser when it reads this line, hey, this is an HTML document. And our HTML document has got a couple things in it. The first thing I like to put in it, is a comment. And that comment is my name. It's a lot of twos. Okay, so that one line at the top of my document is there for two purposes. The first is it puts my name right in the file so that I know who wrote this. The second is it claims ownership. Software in general, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, any software, is copyrighted as a literary work. As far as the law is concerned, your software is no different than Harry Potter. It's the text you wrote is what's copyrightable. And if you put your copyright notice in with your name, that's sufficient to say you own it. So if you do something brilliant and you don't put your name on it, I can throw my copyright in and I own it. But what I suggest for you guys is you just get in the habit of the top of every file, one line, a comment. This is how I own this file. The next part I'm going to do for our HTML file is tell the browser that this is HTML. And what you see the editor doing for me is automatically creating the open and closing tags. And again, I'm going to get into more detail of this next time. HTML is a markup language. You're trying to tell the browser how to draw this. And the way we do that is we create a collection of what we call tags. Those tags can be nested inside each other, and those tags have meaning. So the meaning that the HTML tag is here's my document. The browser ignores everything outside of the closing HTML tag. All of our tags have this same format. They have a less than sign, they have the name of the tag, they have a greater than sign, they have some content in the middle. We'll open up. Oops. Like that. And then they have a closing tag, and that's a less than sign, the backslash here, the name of the tag, and a greater than sign. So everything after here this all gets ignored. And anything that's inside these special symbols is also ignored. Those are called comments. Now inside our HTML tags, we have two tags that we use. The head tag and the body tag. That is a fully complete, 100% valid HTML page. There's nothing incorrect about this. There's nothing fake or just for demo purposes. That's perfectly legitimate. What's in the head section tells the browser anything it needs to load before it draws what's on the page. The page itself, what you see, goes inside the body tags. So what we typically do is we open them up and we put our content in the middle. If I could learn to type after all these years, it would help. Right? Now, if you're watching the live share, put myself kind of back. And I can flip down to this screen. It looks something like this, although I'm betting that the live share is looking a lot clearer to you than the stream. What we have here is a very basic hello page. And to see what it looks like, all we really need to do is to put this index.html file into our browser. And there's a couple ways we can do it. We can drag and drop it. If you go into Visual Studio Code and you right-click on the file name and you go Reveal in File Explorer or Reveal in Finder, you'll get a window pop up. And if you have the file extensions exposed, let me just turn a view you can see. If you have those file extensions exposed, you'll see it's a .html file. And I've also got Chrome's icon here. When you open that file, or choose Open With, or just double click it, it looks at the extension, and based on the extension, it goes, which program do I open this with? I open this with my browser. So when I open it with the browser, I get this. Now, it's very, very faint, but you can see my hello there in the top left corner. It's got no style. It's on the blinding white background.
Do you
But
mind just showing us how open the browser one more time?
Sure. I took the file and I double clicked it.
How did you get your file into like the folder?
If you right click on it and go reveal with File Explorer. Okay.
I don't have this option.
It'll be reveal in Finder. You can also
HTML.
Yep.
Where can I find it?
Well, when you go reveal with File Explorer, it shows the file in your native File Explorer or your Finder.
Yeah, this option is not showing for me. The reveal in Finder.
Is there a reveal in Finder?
No, I'm at school. I'm in Windows.
Options there. Show me your screen.
I think it's because you're screen sharing. We don't have it saved on a file on our computer.
Oh, yeah, if you're looking at my file, it's not going to open. You have to edit your own. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
You can't open mine. Mine's on my computer. You're just looking at it. Open up another copy of Visual Studio Code and edit one yourself. So look at mine, edit yours.
I don't see the click on my...
And share your screen with us. Guaranteed, if one person's having problems with this, someone else is too.
I have the same problem.
So, who am I going to watch here?
Can I share my screen?
Yeah. That's the whole idea, the whole Discord thing, is you can share your screen if you run into a problem. So let's look at Marion's screen. So,
very white.
Right. So let's go back to Visual Studio Code.
Wait, let me just share not from but
But your whole screen.
yeah. No. I think I'm only streaming from.
Yeah, just Chrome. When you do it, I'll show you.
Oh.
When you do it and you click the screen button,
Yeah,
you're sharing the app.
Yeah, there we go.
There we go.
So this is my tag, well, my code.
Right.
This is the Chrome thing.
And before you go to Chrome, this is your copy of the editor. So when you look at the editor, what you'll see at the top line is it says index.html and there's a white dot beside it. See the big white dot beside it?
Okay.
No, at the tab at the top. See that white dot? That white dot means you haven't saved it.
Oh.
File, save, or Control S.
Oh, okay. But is this supposed to be there?
No. So where is it? Go back to your file. There's an extra greater than sign somewhere.
Sorry about that.
You broke the internet. I don't think so.
Oh, I found it. It's in this one. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. That was everything.
That's it? That was easy.
Yeah.
Anyone else need some help?
Yeah, I'm having a little trouble also.
Okay.
Should I share my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, am I sharing?
Rodrigo. So if you finish sharing, you might want to shut your streams down. If you're sharing from the browser, there's a Discord two-step you have to do, which is bizarre. So, Rodrigo, you're in the browser, right?
I'm in browser.
Okay. So, first of all, Nicola, you can probably turn your stream off. So you just click on the screen button and it'll give you an option to close it. For Rodrigo, Discord's not very stream friendly on the web. So while you're watching everything and your camera's on, it's hard for you to stream as well. And this is going to sound really weird, but if you stop watching mine, okay, and you turn your own camera off, so you click the video button and turn it off, and then go share your screen, then you can turn your video back on and turn me back on.
Okay, so how was that? Okay, so I stop watching your camera?
Yep. It's more about you turning your camera off. And your...
Is my camera off right now?
Yep. There we go. Now you can turn your camera back on. Don't ask me why you have to do it in that sequence, but like I said, we've been doing this online on and off for a year and a bit with game design and programming, and we've learned some tricks.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll try to download the app as soon as I can.
Okay.
So yeah, do you see my Visual Studio document?
Right.
Yeah.
So first of all, there's a document called Untitled 1. So if you look at the very top, see the file folder? See that tab there? It says doc type HTML Untitled 1, right? Yeah, so go File, Save As, index.html. Put it in your VFS. Yep. Yep. And then users, repos. Yep. And then make that index.html. Okay, save that. All right. Now, under the File menu, it says you have no file open. So go Open Folder and go open just that folder. So click on Repos and click Select Folder. Yeah, click the checkbox and say, yes, I trust it. It's because you haven't put that folder under your user folder.
Oh, okay. I see.
So now open up your Hello folder.
And there I get my index.
And there's your index. So reveal in File Explorer and double click it. Oh, you got the rookie boxes on. There you go.
There we go. Thank
Cool.
you so much.
All right. Cool. So that means you've all kind of built your first web page, right? Was that really scary?
Very.
But you're programmers now.
I think I have directory boxes on as well. But can you tell me where to turn them off?
In the View menu,
Okay.
there's an item. Let me see if I can just go there. In the View menu, there's an item called Item Checkboxes on the right-hand side. So you want item checkboxes off, file name extensions on, hidden items off. If you want, you can click this Options button, and you can tell it to apply to all folders.
Wait, sorry, can I see it again?
Yeah, there. So in the File Explorer here, this is the area you're looking at.
Okay.
Right? Right here.
I don't have those. I don't have the whole lot at the top.
You got to click on the View menu. It starts with the Home menu, then there's a Share menu, and there's a View menu. It might be collapsed.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. Can I share my screen?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, look, it's me.
Oh shoot, hang on. Can you see me?
Nope.
How do I share as anonymous again?
That's in Visual Studio Code. This will just be your screen. This will just be in Discord. You know where you're at?
Yeah, am I sharing now?
You're sharing Discord.
Yeah.
Here, take a look at mine. So in Discord, you're gonna go share your screen, and then click on Screens and share one of your monitors. I just have lots.
It's asking me to stop streaming and giving me stream quality and change window.
Yeah, so stop streaming. So you're gonna click here and stop streaming. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then go back and click the screen button and choose a screen. And once you do that, let's say I pick, let's pick that screen. Then it'll go to this tab, and you can just push go live. There we go. So that's your VS Code. Okay. So right click on index.html for me. And that's my VS Code.
I don't think so, because I changed. I put my name in the copyright.
Right, but the one I'm looking at is mine.
How do I change it?
You'll have to tab to the, or alt tab or change.
I'll have to tab to?
Yeah.
To where?
Well, it depends. Have you got all the screens maximized?
No.
So you've got another copy of Visual Studio Code running.
Yep.
So switch to that one. That's not the one you're sharing.
Alright. How do I unshare your one and share mine?
Okay, so there's a screen button in the bottom left.
Okay.
This is in Discord.
Oh, I can't.
You're sharing the application. You're not sharing your screen. So in Discord, yeah. So in Discord, press the screen button and stop sharing. Okay. Now press the screen button, and when the dialog pops up with all the different applications you can share, right beside the word applications, there's the word screens.
Alright.
So we want you to share the whole screen.
Okay. If when do we go live? First.
Then you push go live.
Okay.
Yay! That's it. You're a pro now. Okay. So there's Visual Studio Live Share, it says at the top, and there's yours. Yay. Okay. So you don't need an account to sign in. So just click away from that dialog. Well, hit escape. There you go. So click on index.html. Is it saved?
I think so.
So go to the file menu.
Yeah.
And save. It's all good. Okay. Now, in there, go to the file menu again, or right-click on index.html and go Reveal in Finder. And double-click it. Yep. Got it?
Yep.
All right.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I'm going to share a few things with you, hopefully to maybe alleviate some of the things you might discover along the way. We're going to talk a little bit about this, and then I'm going to open up some stuff in Moodle for this afternoon, including some exercises. What I recommend you do with the exercises is create yourself 3 or 4 new Hello World pages to get used to creating them. Create a folder, create an index.html inside that folder, cut and paste the Hello World, change the text in there if you want, reveal in the Finder or the Explorer, and double-click it to open it in a page. Just get comfortable with create a new folder, create a new file, edit the file, open it up, and double-click it to see what it looks like. Okay. Now, when you start getting into heavier development, we're going to start to see stuff where, when I share my screen, it's kind of blurry, and if I switch things over here, you'll see my editor. I won't have my editor maximized to the full screen. I will probably do stuff like this. So that I can go grab, let's say, let me go grab my little thing again. I can grab this, and I'm going to make this browser smaller. You see the struggles I'm having on a single screen? Now imagine, where am I going to put the debugger? Which is another app we're going to have open. And so I'm going to run out of screen real estate. I can make this big. So this is where having multiple monitors kind of helps. So some of the things that you're probably going to run into, and they're more psychological than anything else. First one is programming is problem solving, and learning the language seems like the biggest hurdle for most people to begin with. But I want you to try and think about, what is the problem I'm solving? I want to design applications or sites. And when I'm designing those applications or sites or those pages, I want to focus on, what does it look like? Learning the language is just, how do I make that happen in the browser? So at first, learning the language is going to feel like a very big uphill battle, learning enough of the language to be able to do something. Once you get to a certain level, you're going to be able to imagine, draw, and then implement solutions to problems. So focus on that problem solving. When we talk about platforms, we're going to talk about whether or not we're going to see this on a browser or whether we're going to see it on a mobile device. And honestly, when we talk about design, it's easier to design for mobile devices first and make it work on the browser. But for this course, I would say just focus on the browser for right now. So don't get bogged down in, how do I make this work on my mobile device? How do I get this onto a server? Those are all more advanced things. We need to get the basics behind, how do I take the solution to my problem and get it implemented in a web page. The next thing we want to talk about is, the programming part of it is really about, how do I come up with an unambiguous way to describe that to the browser, which is where all that weird syntax comes in, where all those weird symbols come in. All of the crazy bits people think of with programming languages have to do with the fact that most of the things that we deal with are dealing with really dumb pieces of software. So our browser, for as bright as it might be, is really not good at guessing at what we want. So we need to be very unambiguous about what we describe for the browser to draw. And part of the way we structure our HTML is to make it easier for the browser to not make mistakes. So we need to use the syntax or the punctuation of the language to tell the browser exactly what we want. As far as working with this stuff goes, I want you to remember a few things. First of all, working doesn't necessarily mean good, and good doesn't necessarily mean it works. And that might be a little bit weird to stretch your brain around. Okay? Just because something works doesn't mean it's well done. All that means is it works. And something that's really well done doesn't necessarily work. It's a process for solving problems. How do we solve problems in the best way possible? And by the best way possible, what we're really looking for is solutions that are what we call extensible and manageable. Those are things that we can add more to in the future. Because as much as everybody thinks you're going to build something and then you're going to move on to the next thing, the reality is, in most applications and pages that we build it once and it looks really great the day we build it, and 3 months later someone's coming back going, yeah, but I want it to do this too. And if you built it in a good way, that's relatively easy to do. And if you build it in a bad way, it's really painful to do. Most of development and programming is a continual improvement process. And as far as that process goes, there's this kind of picture you should have with the way you're going to make progress. That dotted line there represents how art gets better. It's a linear process. The more you do, the better you get. It's a continuum. So as you start out, you do something and it looks okay, but you know you can do better. And with more practice, you simply get better at it every step of the way. Programming doesn't work that way. HTML, CSS won't come to you that way. You'll get that flat line at the bottom, and many of you may be there today. Oh my God, this is so hard. I have no idea what's going on. And then something will click. You'll do a few things. It'll make sense. You can make hello world. And then you hit the flat part of that bar, the bottom. And you're like, that's okay. I get this. I think I'm kind of understanding how the web stuff works. And then all of a sudden I'll ask you to do something new, and it'll be that vertical wall that you'll run into. It'll be a complete block. It'll be like, that's it. I'm an idiot. I don't know what I'm doing. So don't beat yourself up over it. Keep working through the problem. You will eventually get it. And when you get it, all of a sudden you'll rock it up and you'll be like, oh yeah, okay, I get that part now. And you'll start to build bigger and more complicated things until you run into the next roadblock. So software development, web programming, HTML, CSS is going to be a lot of these peaks and valleys. You're going to go from feeling like a complete rocket scientist, like you totally have this, to a complete idiot in 3 seconds flat. And you're going to feel like a completely stupid person because you can't figure this out. And it may happen for days. And then all of a sudden, the next breakthrough comes and you're like, oh, I get it. And I can make amazing things. Until you hit the next roadblock. This is normal. Okay? This happens to me. The only difference is you start to take on more and more complicated things. So be prepared for that roller coaster of, I don't know what I'm doing. It's really frustrating. It's really hard. I need help. Followed by, oh, finally I kind of get it and I can do this part. And now I feel really good about what I can do, which lasts only until you get to the next thing that you can't figure out how to do. So be ready for it. Most of the work we do is going to involve managing data. So from a design side, we're going to focus on user interfaces. We're going to focus on building pages that have a very particular look to them. And what I want to emphasize with you is that until you know what you're showing on the screen, it's really hard to figure out the best way to show it, the best way to design around it. So a lot of development is about figuring out what's the data I need to present and how am I going to present it. Learning to do the programming side of it is about following kind of some steps. And these steps are the same whether you're doing design or programming or game development. It's understand the problem. Make a list of all the things the user can do. And then for everything the user can do, what does my site do in response to that? And it's always that interaction that's the most interesting. I'm going to present this data. I'm going to show it in a web page like X. What am I going to allow the user to do? Oh, they're going to click a link and it's going to go here. Okay, what does that data look like? The more of a plan you have on paper, the easier it is to implement. So, what's the problem I'm trying to solve? What is it going to look like to the user? What can they do? And what happens after they do that thing? Now, in a real world sense, people will flip into these kind of two main roles. The designer is usually the one responsible for talking to the clients. We often don't want to let the programmers talk to the clients. That's usually not a great idea. The designer is going to need to pull the requirements out of the client. They're going to need to be able to figure out what is the problem, how to articulate it, and they're going to need to be able to design and build a workflow with a consistent, nice UI, a set of pages that a client can go through to solve their problem. Whereas the programmers are going to be responsible more or less for the interactive parts of your page, for implementing a lot of the designer's vision, and for asking for information from a server if that's required. Those two things, if they live in the same person, happen to be one of those kind of happy places that employers really want. If I can have a designer who's always also a programmer, I'm going to get a very much more productive person out of there. Now, the other thing is And this happens when you start to find cute solutions online, or you come up with something you've seen before and you want to extend it, extrapolate it. And this is more for the programmers out there. Typically, debugging is twice as hard as writing the stuff. Figuring out what's wrong when something doesn't work is a skill. And it's a learned skill. It's not something everybody inherently just understands. So until you learn that skill, trying to keep the HTML and CSS you write as simple as possible makes it easier to figure out when things don't go wrong. So I'm going to emphasize that we do a lot of that. We try and keep it simple and straightforward and not worry too much about kind of the gory details of doing really elaborate sites to begin with. And that's enough to fill your brains for today, I think. I've got some room here if you have some very specific questions or you want to share your screens with some things that aren't working. I'm going to leave you with some exercises in Moodle, and most of the exercises are just going to be repetition. Go and build 3 or 4 little mini pages, just like we did that hello page. Next time, I'm going to break down tags and elements in HTML for you in excruciating detail, and then we're going to build slightly more elaborate web pages as we go. All right. That's all I got for you guys today. Hopefully there was enough there to have a little meat on the bones. I am going to give you that first assignment. That first assignment is in Moodle. And the assignment really is just to hand me your hello world index.html. So instead of hello there, make it say hello world, build a separate copy of it, and submit it to me. Okay? This is just get used to Moodle and the way Moodle works. Have you guys been walked through Moodle and how to work with Moodle and submit things yet?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So watch for the submit buttons. I'll open some stuff up, so check back into my Moodle page by the end of the day, and you will find some additional information there. I'll open up a link to CodePen. CodePen is an online editor, and sometimes we use it for testing short little things. And we'll show it to you next time. Okay?
Are you gonna open up the assignment later?
You can open it up, can't you?
I see it. Thank you.
Yeah, you'll notice the way my Moodle pages are laid out, it should be pretty straightforward where things are going to pop up. And I try and open things up just in time so that you don't get overwhelmed by the 650 links and 1,200 items that are in there. That's okay. All right. I think we're done for the day.